The city slept beneath a velvet sky, its restless pulse softened by the whisper of rain. Streetlights shimmered in the puddles, blurring the reflections of passing cars into strokes of gold and silver. Somewhere beyond the hum of traffic, in a quiet corner cafe that stayed open long past midnight, sat Aria, her fingers tracing lazy circles on a half-empty cup of coffee. The window beside her was fogged, her breath leaving faint clouds as she stared out into the storm. She had always loved the rain, it made the world softer, slower, more honest. But tonight, it only made her heart ache. Every droplet against the glass felt like a memory knocking to be let in, memories of laughter, of promises whispered under the same moonlight, of Ethan, the boy who once made the world stop spinning whenever he smiled. It had been 2 years since he left, or maybe she left first. Time blurred when hearts broke. There had been no fight dramatic enough to explain the silence that followed. No betrayal sharp enough to justify the distance. Just two people who loved too much, too soon, and not enough at the right times. Aria thought she had moved on, that the chapters had closed. Yet here she was, sitting in the same cafe where they'd first met, at the same hour. As if the universe refused to let her forget. The rain outside glimmered like starlight on the pavement, and she wondered, did he still think of her when it rained? Across the city, Ethan walked beneath the same storm, his jacket soaked, his hair dripping with rain. He wasn't sure why his feet carried him through the familiar streets. Maybe it was nostalgia, or maybe something deeper.
I've been thinking about
Midnight had a way of
everything.
pulling lost souls toward unfinished stories. When he passed the cafe, he almost didn't look up. But then, something inside him shifted. A flicker of movement, a shape behind fogged glass, a silhouette he knew too well. His breath caught. Could it be? He stood there for a long moment, half afraid that if he blinked, she'd disappear like a dream. The rain fell harder, but he didn't move. He could see her now, her hair falling in soft waves, her lips slightly parted as she watched the night, the same gentle face that haunted his sleepless hours. And in that instant, the distance of 2 years vanished. The cafe, the rain, the world outside, it all blurred into nothing but her. Ethan pushed the door open, a gust of wind following him inside, carrying the scent of rain and memory. Aria looked up, startled, her heart stuttering in disbelief. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The clock on the wall ticked softly, marking the seconds between the past and the present. Then, with a trembling smile, Ethan whispered the only words that made sense. Still waiting for the rain to stop. Aria's lips curved, her eyes glistening. Maybe I was waiting for something else. And just like that, midnight began again, not as an ending, but as a beginning. The silence that followed was delicate, fragile, like a melody they both remembered but were afraid to play again. Ethan stood by her table, the rain dripping from his sleeves, pooling on the floor beneath him. Aria's gaze flickered from his eyes to the window, then back again, unsure whether to smile or cry. The cafe's dim lights cast a soft golden hue across his face, illuminating the same familiar lines she used to trace with her fingers. Time had changed him, a little more mature, a little more quiet, yet the warmth in his eyes was still there, untouched by the years. "You look the same," he said finally, his voice low, almost lost beneath the murmur of rain. Aria laughed, a small, uncertain sound. "And you still lie just as well," she teased gently, though her eyes softened. "You look different, but good different." Ethan smiled, the corners of his lips curving the way they once did when he was trying not to say too much. He pulled out the chair across from her, hesitating for only a second before sitting down. The space between them was small, yet filled with everything they hadn't said in 2 years. The sound of rain filled the silence like background music to their unspoken thoughts. "I didn't think I'd see you again," she admitted, stirring her coffee though it had long gone cold. Ethan's gaze lingered on her fingers, still delicate, still restless when she was nervous. "I didn't think I'd find you again," he replied. "But then again, I wasn't looking for you. I was just walking, and somehow every road still led here." Her chest tightened at his words, the sincerity of them slipping through her defenses like sunlight through storm clouds. They spoke quietly, cautiously at first, as if afraid the moment might shatter. But slowly, the tension began to melt away. He told her
All
about
the
the years
distance
apart,
between
the
us.
cities he'd lived in, the
I've
songs
always
he'd
loved
written,
you,
the nights he couldn't
even
sleep
after
because
all these
everything
years.
reminded him of her. And she
I
told him
know, I
about her
always
art,
loved you
her
too.
lonely mornings, and the
Oh, I
ache of
can't believe that
pretending she was
happened.
fine. They laughed at
Right?
small memories, the time they got caught in the rain
I
without
still
an
laugh
umbrella,
thinking about it.
the midnight
I
walks
just
where they'd
remember
planned their
feeling so
futures as if
happy,
love could conquer distance.
even in the
Every
rain.
shared memory pulled them closer,
Me
like
too.
threads stitching back the
It
fabric of
was a
something once
beautiful
torn
night.
apart. Outside, the rain began to ease, turning from storm to drizzle. The streetlights flickered, and a faint blush of dawn began to creep into the horizon. Ethan leaned back, his eyes searching hers,
Some
and for the
stories
first
don't
time in
end
years,
where we
she
think
didn't
they
look
do.
away. You know, he said softly, some stories don't end where we think they do. Arya smiled faintly, a tear glinting in the corner of her eye. Maybe ours just paused, she whispered. And in that quiet moment, between rain and sunrise, it felt like the world had given them another chance. They stepped out of the cafe together, the door chiming softly behind them as if bidding farewell to the past. The rain had slowed to a mist, gentle and silver under the glow of the streetlights. Arya pulled her coat tighter around her, while Ethan tilted his face toward the sky, breathing in the scent of wet earth and coffee. For a moment, neither spoke. Their footsteps echoed softly against the damp pavement, two shadows moving side by side through the sleeping city. The world felt washed clean, reborn, and maybe, in a way, they were too. Do you still walk without an umbrella? She asked, smiling as the drizzle kissed her hair. Ethan chuckled, sliding his hands into his pockets. Old habits die hard. I used to think walking in the rain made everything feel lighter.
I remember
Arya
this.
looked at him then, her eyes glimmering beneath the dim light. Did it? She asked
just not
quietly.
sure what to say
His
anymore.
gaze met hers, steady and warm. It did,
It's alright.
until you weren't beside me. The words hung in the
Just
air
be
like
honest with
music,
me.
tender and fragile. Arya felt her heartbeat stumble, a soft ache stirring where love had once lived, or perhaps, never truly left. They wandered toward the riverfront, where the city lights shimmered on the water like scattered stars. The night was calm now, the storm finally spent. Ethan stopped at the railing, looking out over the rippling reflection of the moon. Funny,
Isn't this
he said,
beautiful
how some
light?
places never change. Arya joined him, her shoulder brushing his lightly. Or maybe they change, but we come back different. Their eyes met again, a slow, searching gaze that spoke louder than any words could. Ethan reached for her hand, hesitant at first, as though testing the weight of time between them. When their fingers intertwined, it felt both strange and familiar, a memory come alive. Arya exhaled softly, her heart trembling with something both old and new. Maybe the rain was never about endings, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan smiled, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her skin. Maybe it was always about finding our way back. And there, beneath the fading drizzle and the silver kiss of dawn, love quietly bloomed again, not loud or perfect, but real, like the first light after the longest. For a long moment, they just stood there, the sound of the river whispering beside them, the night holding its breath. Arya turned to face Ethan, her eyes reflecting the quiet glow of dawn. Do you ever wonder,
Every
she began
moment
softly,
with you
what would have
feels
happened
like
if we
a
hadn't let
quiet
go?
symphony.
Ethan looked down, his expression
dance
unreadable at
between
first,
hope
then
and
tender.
memory.
Every
I'm
day,
so
he
sorry,
admitted,
Arya.
I used to replay it all in my
I should
head,
have
what
told
I
you
said,
sooner.
what I didn't say.
I
I
understand,
thought maybe
Ethan.
if I'd held on tighter, you
It's
wouldn't have
okay.
walked away. She shook her head gently, tears glimmering. You didn't lose me, Ethan. We both got lost somewhere between pride and fear. He stepped closer, his voice breaking with emotion. I was scared,
I
he confessed.
understand that feeling.
Scared I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Scared that love wasn't going to be enough. Arya's lips trembled into a faint smile.
It means a lot
It
to
was
me.
always enough, she whispered. We just didn't know how to believe in it. The honesty between them felt like sunlight after years of rain, raw, healing, and warm. Ethan reached out, brushing away a tear that slipped down her cheek. His touch was
I
gentle,
believe in
reverent,
us,
like a
Ethan.
promise. Then let's believe now, he murmured. No more running. No more almosts. Arya closed her eyes, the weight of the years melting away in a sink. When she opened them again, she saw not the boy she lost, but the man who had waited through time, through distance, through silence. Then let's start again, she said softly, her voice steady now. Ethan smiled, the kind of smile that carried both apology and hope. "Midnight's almost over," he said. And for the first time in forever, they both believed it. The first light of morning broke gently across the horizon, painting the river in shades of gold and rose. The city, still half asleep, shimmered beneath the soft embrace of dawn. Arya and Ethan stood close,
I love you
their
too,
hands still
with all
intertwined,
my heart.
the night's confessions lingering in the quiet air. The world around them felt new, as if time itself had forgiven them. Ethan turned to her, his eyes glistening with the sunrise. "So this is our second chance," he whispered. Arya smiled, her heart steady for the first time in years. "No," she said softly, stepping closer, "this is our first real one." The wind played with her hair, the same way it had the night they first met, and Ethan couldn't help but laugh, not from joy alone, but from relief, from the miracle of finding her again. He leaned in, brushing his forehead against hers, the warmth of his breath mingling with hers. "I missed this," he murmured. Arya's eyes fluttered closed as she whispered back, "Then don't ever let it go again." And when their lips met beneath the awakening sky, it wasn't a reunion, it was a beginning. A love reborn with the dawn.